Hey, what's going on, guys? It's me, Train Man, and welcome back to the Zombie Train, episode 179, right? 179, that's right. This is an episode about Springfield, believe it or not. Now, this is a departure from what I originally thought it was, but I had to look back. Oh, so, by the way, we're working on the old main today. I created finished version Alpha 0.8 of the Iron Horseman route. And that's not going to be a public release. Next public release is going to be Beta 1.0. And it's going to be a little bit of time until I'm done with that, but that should be coming soon enough. You know, definitely before the end of the summer. Probably, definitely before the end of the summer. A lot of work has to go into the old main here, which is why I spent all of my time working on it now. Fortunately, I've got help. Anyways, so this episode we're going to be talking about... It's originally entitled Various Things About the Past, but I had to go back and look at the comment, and now I understand. I also had to open up the story. So The Past being the only full-length novel that I wrote that was released. You know, there are a few others in the works, and even more that I want to write, but haven't gotten to yet, and probably won't get to for a while. So, this is the Zombie Train book, The Past. It was originally going to be the second of the series. It became the third. But it's the only real one written. The question was asked by Captain Tank, Traincraft. What? Oh, well, that's not what I have written down. He has a slightly different name before, but anyways. So because I have a few questions. One, when you sent me the story on the pass on Chapter 3 Breakfast, what happened in Springfield when you were looking at maps for a side indeed breakfast? Didn't know what you meant by that, had to reread part of the past. Now I know. Now I get it. On the cover there were a few stories, blah blah blah. Anyways. Okay, so here we are finally approaching that. That was episode 175, so a month goes by and I finally get to address this happenstance. Now, as I've mentioned, the other stories are in the works, or want soon to be in the works. Soon TM. You know, I'll get to it. But we leave Cutbank. So this is The Pass, for those of you who are not aware, is the story of the zombie train, going over Mariah's Pass on our first time ever going to the West Coast. We were invited almost to, the Oregon Rail Heritage Center because they could do some serious maintenance on 3254 that we couldn't manage ourselves. Because they were under sort of the umbrella of the military at this point, and they could get supplies that otherwise we couldn't get our hands on particularly easily. Anyways, so we're leaving Cutbank on Mariah's Pass. We're heading westbound, of course, and we get over the bridge, and we keep going, and, you know, I realize, you know, we're just getting going, but we should stop for breakfast. And so Emilio makes mention that we could stop pretty much anywhere. Emilio is, you know, at the time, my best friend, and sort of the co-runner. He was supposed to be the other guy that knew how to drive the engine. He ended up not being, but that's a story for another time. He was, you know, he served as fireman for a long, long while. Anyways, so I say we could stop he says we could stop pretty much anywhere, we don't have to worry about blocking traffic, and I counter with, do you remember Springfield last May? And so what happened was let me bring up the track arrangement of Springfield. In fact, I may have been mistaking Springfield for a Palmer, but needless to say, when we were parked, you know, just sort of sitting and scouring the town and, you know, waiting to proceed. I don't remember exactly what we were waiting for. I think it was a connection from someone or another. Had not supplies, I would be doubtful it was supplies, but definitely information for us as to where we were going next, because this was May. This was only a few months after the Great Panic. Okay, so where was I talking about? Springfield, Massachusetts. Very big town here. And there's a quite sizable yard in Springfield as well. And so we decided to stop. Yeah, no, it was definitely Springfield. We decided to stop in Springfield, just sort of waiting. And goodness me, I don't remember on the timeline of this, but we had part of our train on the bridge and part of it in the yard, and it sort of stretched across. It went over a highway and under a road and over another road, and so we just had it brought into park there. Now, the bridge itself is two-track, but we were on the northern track, which would be the westbound main. And again, sort of parked into the city, and somebody comes wrong roading it from approximately Albany. I believe they had something Amtrak. It must have been a P-42 at that point. They had come in from Pittsfield, and driving this with one coach, they had tried to make their getaway, and they'd made it all the way to Springfield, and then came barreling around the corner, wrong-roading it on the main line, and would have slammed into the engine if it weren't for some quick thinking by... I don't quite remember who it was. I think it might have been Paul Bedard, who was with us at that point. And he was at the west end of the yard. They were looking over some... there's a big, trucking area. There's a big warehouse. They were going through there. And so these guys come around the corner, and he goes over to the switch, because they're not going immensely fast, but they're not paying attention either. And with that much... and they can't see us because we're around the corner. There's no way to flag them down. They don't, he doesn't have a radio, so there's no way to see if they're paying attention to their radio. And so he books it over to the switch and crowbars it. And again, they're spring-loaded switches, but so he it was common practice, common procedure. We got pretty good at disabling the switch motors and, sort of making them ghetto manual switches. And so that one, because it was on the yard switch, or, it was one of the main switches into the yard, we'd already taken care of. And so he rams his crowbar into the quote-unquote mechanism that we've jury-rigged and throws the switch. And that gets him onto the other track. Not the other main line, but one of the yard tracks, which, because of the fact that the switch was lined to it, it must have been pulled out of there a while ago, something must have been pulled out of there a while ago, and they get switched onto the yard track. Of course, the yard track is going to come out, sort of down the way, and it's going to intersect right where the train is, and it's going to hit, the boxcars. No, sorry, the boxcars were on the bridge. It is actually going to hit into the hoppers that were right behind the engine. And of course, this scared the living daylights out of me. So, he gets switched onto the yard tracks. He barrels through the yard, again, at probably 20 or 30. Again, not incredibly fast, but not slow by any stretch of the imagination. Finally comes out of the other end of these lines of cars, sees us, jams on the brakes, doesn't do a hell of a lot with the jamming on the brakes, and runs into those hoppers at probably anywhere between 5 and 10 miles an hour and just knocks them off the track. Of course, this thudded, this section of track is actually on a bridge, and so he knocks into the side of us on the bridge. Oh wait, no, that's a crossover. Okay, yeah, no, we were a little ways down. Part of the train was on that. Part of the train was on a smaller bridge, but that wasn't the part that was hit. I must be thinking of a different instance where we almost knocked out a bridge from underneath us by derailing, because I don't think that didn't have anything to do with a collision. That was jamming on the brakes and almost jackknifing the train because it popped. It popped and hit. It came off and it hit the bridge, and that concussive impact, I guess, was enough to dislodge part of the bridge. Either way, we were able to pull across that and get it sort of patched up. But anyways, that wasn't here, and that wasn't Now, so he runs into the side of the coal cars, which are right behind me, knocks them over, not over on their side, but knocks them over a little bit, into the space between the two tracks. The engine sort of gets tugged back, the rest of the train gets tugged a little forward. And, we of course had the shouting match with this guy, and he kind of, I don't know, he was this timid son of a gun. He didn't have anybody with him. It was just this one dude who had made off with a locomotive. And I presume he was former Amtrak personnel because he managed to get into the, managed to get in there and make off with this engine without too much of a fuss, we ended up finding out. But he was a little bit intimidated by the fact that we were very upset with him, and then just turned and sort of ran off into Springfield. And I doubt he survived much longer than that. So that was something, and basically my whole beef with the entire situation was, hey, if we'd parked in the yard like we were supposed to, he would have just gone by us. We wouldn't have resulted in, being stuck in Springfield, which, we managed to get that re-railed, but not in a timely manner. We ended up, fighting off some zombies who were coming across the bridge from Springfield proper, coming from behind the train. And that was less than pleasant. In fact, we ended up with some pretty severe damage to the caboose because the crew that was in the caboose at the time, they ran out of ammunition, and running away up the bridge, well, by the time they ran out of ammunition, they were surrounded anyways. It was a lack of, sort of a lack of foresight. They didn't figure we'd take that long getting the hopper back on the track, but we did. So they ended up surrounded and out of ammo, and of course the zombies just love to beat on things when they think, when they know there's food inside. So they buckled in almost both of the doors on the caboose, as well as smashed a bunch of the windows, and that was kind of the end of that caboose. We went and got another one. I don't remember which caboose that was, but I think that was caboose, 2 or 3. Because we went through them not slowly. Again, being at the back of the train is not an ideal location for safety, but, especially during these times. So, they did a lot of damage to that caboose. They not only smashed in doors and broke windows, but they managed to get on the roof. They were pounding at the cupola. They dented the sides, and this was a steel caboose, I think, although it was old, admittedly, and didn't have a lot of its structural integrity left. And yeah, anyways, it cost us a lot in time and in ammunition and in basically sanity to have to deal with the fact that we weren't parked on a siding where we should have been, and this dude, just again fleeing for his life, just came running down out of nowhere. That's kind of half what I was expecting back on the pass. I should tell the story about the bridge. It wasn't a particularly large bridge either. It was a girder bridge. It was actually, where was that? Oh, I remember what happened. Okay, that was over the Patuxent River. That was one of the few times, well, not few times actually, it was fairly common to go through there, but it was one of the few times we went on the third track, the freight track, and it was because we had something obscenely tall. We had a high cube that I think wouldn't fit under the catenaries on the Northeast Corridor, and there was a little bit of bad rail. It swayed. It caught the truss next to it, and this was again, this was a real sway. I sort of panicked, jammed on the brakes. Train jackknifed nearly. That thing tipped. Got caught on. Ignore that. Got caught on the truss bridge that's immediately adjacent because it's a girder bridge next to a truss bridge, and then the rest of the train, which still had plenty of momentum at this point, banged into it. The high cube went cockeyed, smashed the side of the girder bridge, and it left the thing with a kink in it. And that was the last time we used that until we got some heavy equipment out there to basically bend the bridge back to its normal shape and then put some bracing on it, because that's not something that's tolerable when you're driving across a bridge. You don't want to have a kink in it. But speaking of kinks and bridges, that was something to talk about over at Two Medicine Bridge, but that's in the past. That's back, there's a link to it, episode 93, if you want to go check that out. It's a 100-page story chronicling the zombie train, written by yours truly, as we go over the past towards Portland. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next week. Train Man out.